you've been in the league for a while. Just like in sports cards, people are prospecting with rookies and stars.
Mhm.
Is there any, looking back at your tenure in the league, is there any player that like months before, like, because I'm sure you guys talk internally, like, all right, this guy's gonna be a stud. Like any player that comes to mind during the last, 10 years, like, wow, like I knew, in April of 20, whatever, like, is there any player that sticks out for you?
Um, in terms of,
Just like hype or just like, I don't know.
I mean, I would say I'll just go, for the NFL draft, even just over my time. This was my 12th draft here with the Eagles. I would just say like despite better technology, more time in the process, and all that stuff, the results in the first round are still have not drastically improved.
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes you have feelings about players and what they're going to become, the scouts in our building, everybody puts in unbelievable amount of time in terms of identifying players and like really trying to get to the bottom of every single, little issue with a player, knowing everything about them, personality, who they hang around with, those types of things. But it's hard. I mean, you get feelings about certain players, but the reality of, I think football more so than any of the other major sports is where they go, what the situation that they're in, that plays such a big role in terms of what their actual outcome is. It's a crazy thing. Like it's almost like this like sliding doors situation where same player, different team, different coaches, whatever. It could be even just be just a different position group, just being around a different group of players. May completely change the outcome, of their career. To me, like that's an amazing thing about football, and it makes it even that much more difficult to predict. Whether it's draft, even whether it's free agency, and you're taking a professional player who already has a body of work and you're just moving him to another team. Like sometimes you see players take off, and sometimes you see players, who never get to the level of success that they were at a previous team, strictly based on like these, external factors. And I think that makes it really interesting. Baseball to me, like free agency, trade deadline, things like that, it's a little bit of plug and play. Guys effectively have the same role. Their job is impacted maybe by who hits before them or after them in a lineup, things like that, but much less so than the NFL. I always feel good about our draft picks in terms of, we've gone through a process. We feel a certain way about them to where we pick them. And it's just interesting to see how expectations or what you think about a player, and once you get them in the building, and how the reality compares to that.
It's got to be a weird alchemy of trying to figure out what will be a good cultural fit, or like how will somebody do. We were watching The Last Dance with the kids last night. We were watching that episode on Dennis Rodman, and like,
Sure, they had questions.
oh, they love Dennis Rodman. They think he's awesome. But it's like, at the time, I remember everyone was like so perplexed about like, why would the Bulls want Dennis Rodman? Like he's kind of like, he's out of control. He's like damaged goods. And but yet the man, they interview Jared Cross and all the interviews about like, and they just knew that he could be that he could actually fit into their team and excel, which he did. But it's tough, like to know that, to be able to kind of like, read between the lines and figure that out. And and that's one of the most challenging things that you guys
for sure. And I think along those lines, as an extension kind of what I was saying, like if you acquire a player, this is a good example of Dennis Rodman, who comes with a unique personality or a unique, disposition, things like that. You need to have the right situation around that player to support them. You need to kind of know what you're getting. And it's hard. You see whether it's changing a player's position or role, or, they are a certain way off the court in one spot, and then you bring them in and, trying to have them conform to some, like, it changes everything about that player. So yeah, that would be a good example though of a player. Maybe you're like, what, how is that going to work? But they knew, they had done a good job.
It's probably even harder when you're drafting somebody right out of college, right? To even know, I mean, maybe how they worked with their team,
Correct. Yeah, it's
the Phillies. The Eagles like the Georgia Bull. I won't ask you to comment on any of the drafts or anything like that, but clearly, he drafted a bunch of players from Georgia, so I think there must be some sense that there's that there's going to be some immediate cultural fit.